The joy I carried into the hospital shattered before I even reached the ward. One sentence changed everything. "You can't come in." I froze, holding the small gift bag I'd prepared for my first grandchild. Soft booties I knitted myself, every stitch filled with excitement and prayers. The hallway smelled of antiseptic and fear, and for a moment, I couldn't understand why Aisha was blocking the doorway like a guard. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, her face pale from labor but hard with something colder than exhaustion. "Only family is allowed right now," she said, stressing the word family like a knife. For a second I laughed softly, thinking she was joking. Why would she say something so unnecessary? I had prayed for this child before he even existed. I had dreamed of the moment I'd hold him. But her expression didn't change. "Beta. I am family," I whispered. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Not today. I need peace. No tension. You understand." The way she said tension, as if I was a burden, as if my presence polluted the room, cut deeper than anything she had ever said to me. Behind her, Denial stood near the hospital bed, rubbing his forehead like a man trapped between fire and water. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That hurt even more than Aisha's words. "Denial," called gently. He flinched. "Ma, please, she's in pain. Let's just let her rest." His voice trembled, and I could see the conflict in him, but he still didn't step forward. He didn't hold my hand, he didn't assure me, he didn't defend me. He simply folded into her shadow. Felt like my son disappeared that moment. Aisha touched his arm, claiming him completely. "Tell her to go home. She can come later." Her parents were inside, comfortably seated, whispering about names, celebrations, baby clothes. They were family. I was not. That was the message. I tried to breathe normally, but each breath felt scraped raw. The corridor lights above me buzzed faintly, flickering like they also hesitated to witness this humiliation. "I'll just wait outside," I said quietly. "No," Aisha snapped. "Not here. Go home. We need space. Go home. Go away. Go disappear." Her voice echoed inside me as if spoken through a hollow chamber. "Turn." My legs felt heavy, almost foreign. I walked past nurses, past worried fathers, past families carrying flowers and balloons, things I had brought once for others but never imagined I'd be denied for my own grandchild. Outside the ward, I stopped by a row of plastic chairs. My hands shook as I placed the small gift bag on my lap. The tiny blue booties peeked out from the tissue paper, innocent, unaware that their maker had been pushed away like some nuisance. I kept replaying the scene. Her tone. Denial's silence. Closing door. Had I done something wrong? Was I too involved? Too loving? Too present? It seemed like the more I cared, the further they pushed me. A nurse passed by and smiled softly at me, maybe noticing my trembling fingers. I tried to smile back, but it felt glued to my face. Minutes blurred into each other in that cold corridor. I stared at the clock above the nurse's station, watching the long hand crawl like a wounded insect. Every time the door to the maternity ward swung open, my heart leapt, thinking maybe Denial would come out, apologize, tell me everything was fine. But he didn't come. My chest tightened with a strange, growing fear. Something didn't sit right. This wasn't normal tension. This wasn't simply labor stress. Aisha had planned this exclusion. The certainty of that realization settled over me like frost. As more family members of other patients arrived, bringing laughter and celebration, I sat alone, unwanted, unacknowledged, unseen. I didn't belong in my own son's moment of joy. That pain was sharper than anything childbirth could ever be. I rose from the chair, unable to bear the noise around me. Just as I reached the corner near the nurse's station, two nurses walked by, speaking in low, worried voices. One whispered, "They need to call the senior doctor." The other replied, "The baby isn't breathing normally." I stopped breathing. Those words crashed into me like a blow. My humiliation vanished. My anger vanished. My pride vanished. All that remained was terror. and the instinct of a grandmother whose heart knew something terrible was unfolding behind the door I was never allowed to cross. The moment I heard the nurse say the baby wasn't breathing normally, something inside me collapsed. But even then, even in that terrifying moment, I wasn't allowed to be a grandmother. I remained frozen near the corner of the corridor, gripping the wall for balance. My ears rang, and the air felt suddenly thinner. I wanted to run into the ward, to push through every door between me and my grandson, but I knew Aisha would only humiliate me again. And I couldn't bear another blow, not with fear choking me like this. So I stayed close enough to feel near him, close enough to pray. I slid into the same plastic chair as earlier and began whispering du'as under my breath. Ya Allah, protect him. Don't take him away. My hands were cold, but my forehead burned with panic. I kept imagining that tiny body struggling to breathe, fighting for life, and I wasn't allowed even to stand beside him. Minutes later, my phone vibrated violently in my hand. It was Denial. Before I could even say hello, I heard the desperation in his voice. Mama. Something's wrong with the baby. His voice cracked, raw and helpless. They're preparing him for emergency care. I pressed my hand to my chest. I heard. I'm right here outside. Tell me what's happening. She won't let anyone near, he whispered, sounding ashamed. Mama, she still doesn't want you inside. Even now. Even when her child was struggling to breathe. Anger and disbelief surged inside me, but I swallowed them, because this wasn't the moment to fight ego with ego. This was about my grandson. What did she say? Yes. He hesitated. I heard voices behind him, Aisha's sharp, panicked tone echoing down the hallway. She said, he exhaled shakily. No drama. No outsiders. My son needs calm, not her. As if I was a stranger who wandered in from the street. As if I was the danger. I closed my eyes, fighting tears. Denial. I just want to help. I know, Mama. I know. His breathing quickened. I'm trying to talk to her, but she's not listening to anything right now. Then I heard Aisha in the background. Tell her to leave. Why is she still here? Why can't she just stay away? Her words struck like stones. This wasn't just postpartum stress. This wasn't emotional overwhelm. This was intentional. There was something she didn't want me to see. Something she was terrified I would discover. I'm staying, I whispered to Denial. I won't go home. He didn't answer for a moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Mama, need you. Please don't go far. My heart cracked at the helplessness in his voice. My son, my strong, independent son, finally needed me again. But he was trapped in a marriage where even his mother's presence required permission. I'm right outside, I promised. When the call ended, I looked around the hallway. The lights were colder now, the silence heavier. Nurses hurried past with files and equipment, their faces sharp with urgency. Every movement, every step they took made my heart pound faster. And still, no one came to call me in. I pressed both hands together tightly. Why, Aisha? Breathe. Why are you doing this? What are you so afraid of? My mind raced back over the last year. Her suspicious stares, her cold politeness, her sudden decisions that never included me. Every time I offered help, she refused. Every time I showed up with love, she built another wall. What was she hiding? Just then, the maternity ward door swung open. Aisha's mother walked out, her expression twisted with irritation rather than fear. She saw me, looked me up and down, and turned away without a greeting. So that's how it was. They didn't want me there. Not even for the baby's safety. I began to rise, thinking maybe I should force my way in, when a nurse I hadn't seen before paused beside me. She looked around carefully, making sure no one was watching. Then she leaned toward me. You're the grandmother, she whispered. My throat tightened. Yes. You should be inside, she murmured. The baby might need certain consents. My heart jumped. But they said I'm not allowed. She shook her head sharply. That doesn't matter. According to the file. She glanced around again, lowering her voice. Your name is listed as the secondary emergency contact. I stared at her, shocked. My name, I repeated. Yes, she said firmly. You have every right to be here. My pulse hammered so loudly I could hear it. Everything suddenly shifted. If my name was on the file, then someone had put it there. Not Aisha. Not her parents. Denial. And Aisha had been trying to hide it from me. The nurse squeezed my arm gently. Go to the desk and ask. They'll confirm it. She started to walk away, then turned back once more, her eyes soft with sympathy. You should be here, she whispered. You're on the file. Her words felt like a key turning in a locked door. A door I was now determined to open. I felt like the ground shifted beneath me the moment the nurse said it. My name was on the emergency file they were trying so hard to keep me away from. For a few seconds I just stood there, staring at the wall, the buzzing hospital lights blurring above me. My humiliation from earlier twisted into something new. Confusion mixed with suspicion, a bitter taste spreading across my tongue. Why would Denial list me? And why would Aisha hide it? I walked toward the reception desk, each step heavy but filled with growing determination. The nurse behind the counter looked up and offered a polite smile. Can I help you? I swallowed, steadying my voice. My grandson was admitted a couple of hours ago. I was told my name is listed as an emergency contact. I need to confirm. She typed something on the computer, her eyes scanning the screen. Then she nodded, almost casually. Yes, ma'am. You're the secondary emergency guardian on the file. A shiver ran down my spine. Secondary emergency guardian. Not just a contact guardian. Who put my name there? I asked quietly. Only the primary parent can enter it, she said. Your son. My breath caught. Denial. He wrote my name. He wanted me here. But Aisha actively pushed me away. I felt heat rising to my face. Not anger, not yet. Something deeper. A betrayal that I hadn't fully understood until now. Thank you, I whispered, turning away. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I marched down the corridor, past the nurses, past the waiting crowds, until I reached the corner outside the maternity ward. Through the glass, I could see Denial leaning against the wall. His shoulders slumped in exhaustion and fear. I opened the door and stepped inside. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened. Not in anger but in guilt. Mama, why are you? I held up my hand. Why didn't you tell me my name is on the file? His face drained of color. I stepped closer. Why, Denial? He rubbed the back of his neck, breathing heavily. Mama, please. Not here. No, my voice cracked, trembling but firm. I need to hear the truth. Why would you write my name and then let her throw me out like garbage? He closed his eyes, as if my words physically hurt him. Mama, please. I'm already breaking. I softened, seeing the tremor in his hands. Then talk to me. I'm your mother. He finally looked up, eyes wet and defeated. I didn't want you to find out like this. Find out what? He glanced toward Aisha's room, lowering his voice. We're in trouble, Mama. A painful stillness wrapped around us. What kind of trouble? I whispered. He sank onto a nearby bench, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Money. We're drowning. My heart squeezed. Why didn't you tell me? He let out a shaky breath. Aisha didn't want you to know. She thought you'd judge us. She kept saying, your mother will think we're failures. He swallowed hard. She didn't want you involved. Failure. Me. Involved. How could they think that? I sat beside him, my hand gently touching his back. Denial, since when? He exhaled slowly. Since before the baby. The bills, the rent. The complications during pregnancy. I took extra shifts. Borrowed money. It just kept getting worse. My chest ached as if someone was pressing a stone against it. My son had been drowning while I lived barely 20 minutes away, knitting baby booties, clueless. And the hospital? Yes. He lifted his head, eyes full of shame. We can't afford the emergency care. This situation, we weren't prepared. His voice broke. Mama, I listed your name because if something happened, if they needed consent. He swallowed hard. I knew you'd protect him. Tears welled in my eyes. Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you call me days ago? Because Aisha begged me not to, he murmured. She didn't want you to find out anything. Why? He hesitated. That hesitation hurt the most. Denial, I said, my voice trembling with both fear and anger. Your wife kept me from my grandson, even when he was struggling to breathe. She hid my name. She blocked you from telling me the truth. Why? He looked at me with eyes that had aged 10 years in one night. Slowly, painfully, he whispered. She didn't want you to know about the money. His voice cracked on the last word. Money. The word echoed through my mind like a cold wind, carrying fragments of possibilities I didn't want to face. If Aisha was desperate to keep their financial crisis hidden from me, what else was she willing to hide? The corridor blurred around me, and the hum of the hospital dimmed until all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Fast, loud, and steady. Denial wiped his face. Mama, there's more. More. The word sliced through me. What more? I whispered, my voice trembling. He looked toward the wardroom, fear tightening his jaw. It's about the baby. And just like that, the floor felt like it slipped away beneath my feet. I never imagined a truth could hit like a slap, but Denial's confession still rang in my ears. I stood there, trembling, wondering how long my own child had been drowning without a sound. For a moment, the hospital corridor felt too bright, too loud. Nurses rushed past, machines beeped from every corner, and yet all I could hear was my heartbeat thudding against my ribs. I looked at Denial, my son, shoulders shaking, face buried in his hands. I had never seen him cry like that. Not even as a child. Denial, I whispered. Tell me everything. He lifted his face slowly, eyes swollen, guilt written everywhere. She trapped me, Mama. The words cut deeper than he knew. I swallowed hard, keeping my voice steady. What do you mean? He exhaled shakily, leaning against the wall as if the truth itself was too heavy to stand with. After the wedding, everything changed. His voice cracked, and suddenly, we were no longer in a hospital corridor. We were somewhere between the past and the wreckage of the present. I remember the wedding vividly. Aisha glowing, Denial smiling, everyone praising how perfect they were. I thought marriages bloomed with time. I didn't know theirs had started by taking roots in secrecy. She said things, Mama, he murmured. Things about you. My chest tightened. What kind of things? That you interfere. That you control me. That you'll eventually try to control her too. Blinked stunned. Control. When had love been twisted into something so ugly? Denial's jaw clenched. She told me the only way we'd survive as a couple was if I distanced myself from you. A slow ache spread through my chest, the kind that feels like grief even though nothing has died, except maybe trust. I whispered. And you believed her? He flinched, looking away. I didn't know what to believe. I just wanted peace. The confession stung, but beneath the sting was something softer, relief. Relief that he wasn't cruel. Just confused. Just scared. Sometimes fear makes good people do foolish things. A gust of wind from the air conditioning brushed past us, carrying the sterile smell of disinfectant. Somewhere a child cried. Somewhere else, a mother hushed them. But here a different kind of wound was bleeding. Then she took the finances, he continued. My eyebrows lifted. Took? Yes. Everything. He pulled out his wallet, showing me an empty card slot. My salary goes straight to her. She manages every expense. She even changed online banking passwords. A heaviness settled over me like a shadow. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. His throat bobbed. Because she said you were waiting for a moment to take over. That you'd use money to control me. My heart cracked in a quiet, almost dignified way. I raised you with my hands, Denial, I said gently. If I wanted control, I would have taken it long before she arrived. He closed his eyes tightly, pain flickering across his face. I know, Mama. I know now. But back then, everything she said sounded like concern. She cried. She begged. She said she needed to feel secure. And you? Asked. Who made you feel secure? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We stood in silence for a long moment. The kind of silence that exposes everything you've both ignored. She kept convincing me you were the enemy, he said finally. That you'd snatch our peace, our independence, our marriage. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. I was just waiting for my grandchild. His eyes softened with regret. I know that now. He pressed his palms into his face, voice trembling. But when she got pregnant, she panicked. Why? Money, he whispered. Everything suddenly became about money. A knot tightened in my stomach. Explain. Denial rubbed the back of his neck. The baby, the complications. The doctor visits. Something broke in her. She kept saying we weren't prepared. That we were drowning in debt. Debt. He had never mentioned debt. I leaned closer. What debt? He exhaled shakily. Loans she took without telling me. My breath hitched. Aisha took loans. Yes, personal loans. Shopping loans. Installment plans. Mama, I didn't even know half of it until the bank called. He pressed a trembling hand against his forehead. She told me she'd fix it all if I just stayed away from you. I felt my knees weaken. How had everything spiraled so far? Denial, I whispered. You should have come to me. He wiped his tears. I was ashamed. I stepped closer, placing a shaky hand on his arm. You're my son. You never have to be ashamed in front of me. His lips trembled. I didn't want you to think I failed. I held his gaze, steady and warm. Failure isn't when life gets messy. It's when you hide the mess from the people who love you. A single tear rolled down his cheek. And that's why, Denial said, voice softer now. That's why I added your name. My breath caught. As emergency contact. He nodded. Yes. As a safeguard. In case something went wrong. In case she tried to cut me off completely. In case. His voice quivered. In case everything collapsed. A heavy silence wrapped around us. So she didn't know. Yes. No, he whispered. She would have never allowed it. She thinks you want to replace her. Replace her. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. I only want my family safe, I said quietly. All of you. He nodded slowly, guilt and gratitude mixing in his eyes. But before I could speak again, a doctor rushed toward us, white coat fluttering, expression urgent. Are you the patient's mother? He asked. I stiffened. Yes. Is everything all right? His eyes were serious, almost grim. We need to move the baby to NICU immediately. My breath stopped midair. I didn't know a heart could break twice in the same hour. First when the doctor spoke. And then when I saw my grandson lying behind the glass, barely the size of my hand. I stood frozen outside the NICU window, my breath fogging the glass. The world inside was impossibly quiet. Just machines, wires, blue lights, and impossibly tiny babies fighting battles they never chose. But the silence around me, that was different. Heavier. Colder. Aisha and her parents stood a few steps away, whispering sharply, their eyes cutting toward me like knives every few seconds. I pretended not to notice, but the truth was impossible to ignore. They didn't want me there. Not even now, when a child's life hung between two worlds. Still I kept my hands pressed together, praying with every trembling breath. Ya Allah, please. Please keep him safe. I don't know how long I stood like that. Minutes, hours. Feeling helpless and terrified, staring at a tiny chest rising and falling under fluorescent blue light. Every rise was hope. Every fall was fear. Behind me, footsteps shuffled irritably. Aisha's mother. "Why is she still here?" she hissed. Aisha didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she didn't want to. Maybe she was too tired or too ashamed. I wanted to turn to answer, to remind them I was the grandmother of the child inside that room. But my voice stayed locked inside my throat. So I kept praying. The NICU nurse walked past, adjusting alarms, swaddling another premature baby, offering practiced smiles to terrified parents. But when she glanced at me, her smile lingered. "Gentle, kind, human. Is that your grandson?" she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak. "He's strong," she said reassuringly. "He's fighting. You can see it." I swallowed hard. "Thank you." Her words were a tiny patch over a massive wound, but even that felt like relief. Behind me, however, tension crackled again. Aisha's father muttered something under his breath, voice tight and angry. Then Aisha answered sharply. Then her mother snapped back. Their whispers weren't soft. They were fierce, like arguments built over months, stuffed deep, now boiling over because of stress, or maybe something deeper. First, I tried not to listen. It wasn't my business. This wasn't the time. But their voices grew sharp enough to cut through even the NICU's quiet hum. "She should have told us," Aisha's mother hissed. "She was scared," Aisha answered weakly. "Scared of what? Or the truth?" My eyebrows knit together. Truth. What truth? I looked toward them slowly, pretending to adjust my shawl, but really, I was listening. Aisha looked pale, exhausted, her eyes puffy from crying. Her parents hovered over her like storm clouds, angry, restless, hiding something. The kind of tension people feel when secrets are too heavy to carry. I turned back to the window, but the argument kept digging into my ears. "Stop fighting," Aisha whispered. "Not here." Her mother shook her head sharply. "This is exactly why we should talk now." Aisha's father pinched the bridge of his nose. "The doctors are already suspicious. We can't afford a mistake." A mistake. My pulse thudded. What mistake could possibly matter more than the child inside the NICU? The nurse returned briefly, checking the monitors. My grandson's chest fluttered faster now, like he was struggling. I leaned closer to the glass. "Stay with us, little one," I whispered. "Stay strong." My voice cracked at the end. I hadn't cried yet, not fully, but the pressure behind my eyes felt unbearable. Suddenly, I felt a sharp gaze burning into the side of my face. Turned. Aisha's parents were staring at me openly now. Not just irritated. Not just angry. Threatened. Aisha looked away quickly, guilt flashing across her expression like a passing shadow. I felt the truth settle inside me like a stone. Something wasn't right. Something wasn't normal. Most families unite when a baby is in danger. But theirs looked like they were trying to keep a story from unraveling. A story they desperately needed hidden. And somehow, I was at the center of that threat. I stepped a little to the side, giving them space, pretending to refocus on the NICU window. But my ears heard every crack in their whispers. "We should have handled this sooner," her father muttered. "It wasn't the right time," Aisha whispered back. "And now look," her mother snapped quietly. "The hospital is asking questions. Her name is in the file. They think she has rights here." Rights. I felt my heart freeze for a moment. What did they mean? What did they want to hide so badly that even my presence felt dangerous? I forced myself to breathe slowly, deeply, so I wouldn't shake. Aisha's voice was barely audible. "I told you." I couldn't tell him. Her mother scoffed. "You should have. Now this woman is everywhere. Everywhere, and if she asks anything." She stopped abruptly. My breath caught. They feared me asking questions. Questions about what? I stared at my grandson, tiny and fragile, covered in tubes. And a sinking feeling crept over me. Was something done wrong? Was something ignored? Was his condition preventable? Or worse, was it covered up? Aisha's father stepped closer to his wife. Keep your voice down. She's right there. She won't understand, her mother snapped. She never has. My hands curled into fists, hidden under my dupatta. I felt insulted, dismissed. But more than that, I felt alert. Their fear wasn't about me. It was about what I might discover. And that meant there was something to discover. Something important. Something dangerous. Their whispers dropped again, urgent, frantic. Stop it, Aisha pleaded softly. Not now. Please. Her parents ignored her. They leaned in closer, arguing furiously, trying to keep their words contained. But one sentence, slipped out like a blade. Aisha's mother hissed. We can't let her find out. And my entire world shifted. I didn't want to believe it at first. But the moment Aisha's mother whispered, we can't let her find out, something inside me snapped awake, like every instinct I'd ever ignored suddenly stood up, shaken and alert. I stepped back from the NICU window, my palms cold, my heartbeat thudding unnaturally fast. My grandson lay inside, fighting for every breath, while these people were fighting over something entirely different. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Not now. Not while a child was struggling. But some truths don't wait for the right time. They slam into you, ready or not. The argument behind me grew sharper, but then fell into a sudden, unnatural hush the moment they realized I was lingering nearby. Aisha's mother tugged her shawl tighter. Aisha's father looked away, pretending to check his phone. Aisha stared at the floor like a child caught lying. The silence was proof in itself. I walked down the corridor slowly, trying to breathe, trying to calm the panic clawing at my chest. But the words chased me. Her name is on the file. We can't afford a mistake. She shouldn't know. Not now. Something was being hidden from me. Not something small. Not something emotional. Something legal. Something connected to me. I reached the corner of the corridor, leaning against the cool wall, pressing my trembling hand over my heart. A voice inside whispered, find out. So I moved back quietly, staying just out of their sight, listening. Not because I wanted to eavesdrop, but because this family had already decided to keep me out, and my grandson deserved better than secrets. Their words floated through the tense hallway. Aisha's mother sounded furious. He's vulnerable right now. We should finalize things while he's distracted. Aisha's father muttered. We already spoke to the lawyer. We just need Denial's signature. My breath hitched. Denial's signature. For what? Aisha whispered urgently. Not here. Not now. Please. But her mother snapped. Your mother-in-law is the obstacle. She controls everything related to that property. Without her consent we get nothing. You should have handled this. Property. Consent. Obstacle. I felt the truth slam into me like a physical blow. They weren't talking about the baby. They were talking about the inheritance. My late husband's property. The only thing left in my name. The only real asset Denial would receive one day. Aisha's mother lowered her voice, but the words were sharp. The boy was our chance. With the birth, Denial would do anything we asked. But she, meaning me, had to appear. She ruins everything. My knees weakened. So that was why they wanted me gone. Not because I wasn't family. Not because emotions were high. But because I had something they wanted. Because they needed Denial vulnerable, overwhelmed, emotional, without me there to protect him. Aisha's father growled softly. We can still salvage it. He trusts us. He doesn't trust her. Her mother scoffed. Then we force the decision. Once he signs, it's done. And then. The one sentence that made my blood turn to ice. When the baby stabilizes, we'll tell him that his mother is causing stress for Aisha. He will choose her side. He always does. My throat tightened painfully. I bit my lip so hard it nearly bled. They were using my grandson's birth as leverage. As a moment of emotional chaos. As a weapon. To take my son's rights. To take my husband's legacy. To take our family's only remaining piece of security. I had never felt such a mixture of heartbreak and fury. I stepped away from their voices, forcing myself to breathe through the storm building inside me. I shouldn't confront them. Not here, not now, not while the baby's life hung in the balance. But I needed answers. Real answers. So I searched for the one person who could actually know the truth. Denial. I found him sitting alone near the vending machine. Head in his hands, body slumped like a man crushed under burdens no one had warned him about. Beta. My voice cracked. He lifted his head slowly, eyes red and swollen. Amy. I sat beside him, gently placing my hand over his. Tell me everything, Denial. Please. I need to understand. He didn't speak at first. Just stared at the floor, his shoulders shaking slightly. Finally he whispered, I didn't want you to know. My heart clenched. Know what? He swallowed hard. Aisha's family. They've been pressuring me. 4 months. I stayed silent, letting him gather courage. They want access to Dad's property, he said quietly. They want me to transfer part of it into Aisha's name. I closed my eyes briefly, a sharp pain slicing through my chest. And you? Asked softly. I refused, he whispered. Every time. I told them that Dad wanted you to control everything until you decided. I told them I wasn't ready. That it wasn't right. Tears filled his voice. But they kept pushing. They said you were keeping me weak. That you would always control me. That I needed to break free. I clenched my hands together to keep from shaking. And today? What happened today? He exhaled shakily. Aisha said that once the baby was born, I would finally see what matters. She said I should think about my child's future and not your emotional hold. My heart cracked. More than cracked, it fractured. And did you agree? I whispered. No, he said quickly, shaking his head. Never. I told her the property wasn't hers to touch. I told her I wouldn't betray you. I wanted to cry and hug him at the same time. But then the baby, Denial broke, covering his face. When the doctors rushed him away, Aisha's parents cornered me. They said they knew a lawyer who could expedite the transfer. They said it would secure the baby's future. And you? Asked again. He looked at me with raw pain. I told them the same answer. That I couldn't. That I wouldn't. For a moment I felt relief. But only for a moment. Because I remembered their whispered plan. When the baby stabilizes, we'll tell him his mother is the problem. They weren't done. Not even close. I squeezed Denial's hand gently. We'll handle this. But right now focus on your son. He needs you. He nodded weakly. I stood, preparing to return to the NICU. But before I could take a step, a woman in a navy blue ID badge approached me. Excuse me, she said softly. Are you the guardian listed for the infant's secondary consent? Froze. Secondary consent. My voice trembled. Yes, I think I am. She gave me a tight smile. Then we need to talk. Right now. I knew something was wrong the moment the social worker closed the door behind us. Her eyes weren't cold, just cautious, like she was holding a truth she wasn't sure I could survive. I sat down slowly, hands trembling in my lap, heart still pounding from everything I had overheard. My grandson fighting for his life. Aisha's family plotting against Denial. And now this. The room felt too white, too bright. I wanted to run. But the truth was already reaching for me. The social worker placed a thin folder on the table. Mrs. Rahman, she said gently, we need to confirm something with you. I tried to steady my voice. Yes. She opened the file to a single sheet. A neon pink tag marked the top corner. This document, she said carefully, lists you as the secondary guardian for the infant in case of emergencies. I nodded slowly. Yes, I was told my name was on the file. Denial must have added it. She didn't smile. Please look closely. She slid the paper toward me. My eyes scanned the words. Name. My dress. Details only denial or I would know. And then. My signature. My breath caught. The signature looked like mine. Almost identical. Almost. But my looping R was slightly off. My final stroke was shorter than usual. The slant wasn't mine. It was a forged version of my handwriting. Something cold spread through my body. I didn't sign this, I whispered. The social worker watched me carefully. You're sure? I looked up sharply. Of course I'm sure. I would remember signing something this important. She nodded once. We suspected it. That's why we called you. The timing didn't align with your check-in. And the signature was added after the initial form was submitted. The room spun for a second. Who submitted it? She hesitated. The system logs show it was updated from the patient's family access portal. Family access portal. Which only meant one thing. Aisha, or someone from her family. My pulse thudded painfully against my ribs. Why? I whispered. Why forge my signature? The social worker exhaled slowly, like she hated the answer she had to give. Sometimes, she said cautiously, family members create false guardianship to shift responsibility. Especially in cases involving medical risk or financial liability. Froze. Liability. The word scraped against my throat. She nodded. If the baby's condition worsened, decisions, payments, or legal blame could have been directed toward the listed guardians. Including you. Felt like someone had slapped me. My voice cracked. So they wanted me to take the fall. For any complications. For the bills. Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. My knees felt weak despite sitting. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe. Trying not to break apart. Denial had no idea. I knew that much. He would never have done something like this. Which meant, Aisha, who blocked me at the door. Aisha, who spat only family like a knife. Aisha, who had been whispering plans with her parents. She wasn't just trying to push me out. She was trying to use me. As a shield. As a scapegoat. As a way out if anything went wrong. My throat tightened so hard I could barely swallow. The social worker leaned forward, her voice softer now. We've already informed the hospital administration. A forged signature is a serious matter. Especially on a guardianship form. I stared at her, stunned. Is Aisha in trouble? Her expression didn't waver. She will be questioned. And the nurses have been alerted to restrict access until we clarify who can legally make decisions. I felt a strange, painful mix of relief and dread. Aisha wasn't untouchable anymore. Someone finally saw what she was doing. But denial. Oh God, denial. He was already fragile, already broken by fear over his son. How would he handle this? How would he look at his wife after this? The social worker closed the file gently. We just needed to confirm the truth. We'll update you once we speak to her. She stood, signaling the end of the conversation. But I couldn't move yet. My hands were cold. My legs felt hollow. My mind was a storm I couldn't escape. Forged signature. My signature. On a document that could have ruined me. Why would she go that far? I finally forced myself to stand. Thank you, I whispered. For telling me. She nodded. We want what's best for the child. And, for the family. For the family. The word felt twisted now. I stepped into the corridor, the fluorescent lights suddenly too harsh. Everything felt surreal, like I had stepped out of my own life and into someone else's nightmare. Nurses whispered in little clusters. Aisha's mother frowned at them, clearly sensing something had shifted. Aisha stood stiffly beside her father, her face pale, her jaw tight with tension. They knew. The hospital was treating them differently. And they had no idea why. I stayed near the wall, trying not to tremble. I needed to get to denial. I needed to prepare him gently. But before I could take even a step, a hand clamped around my arm. Hard. I jolted, looking down to find Aisha's face inches from mine. Her eyes were wild. Fear and fury burned in equal measure. She leaned closer, her voice a sharp, venomous whisper. "Stay quiet," she hissed, her nails digging into my skin. "Or you'll lose denial forever." Her grip tightened, and her smile, if it could even be called that, was cold enough to chill bone. "You think you're winning. You're not. One word from me, and he'll hate you." She leaned even closer. "So keep your mouth shut." I stared at her, stunned. Her next words were a threat wrapped in poison. "Stay in your place." I heard the shouting before I realized denial was in the room. It cut through the sterile hospital corridor like a knife, sharp, sudden, and impossible to ignore. My heart lurched. Had he finally discovered the truth? Had he finally realized what Aisha had been doing? How she had been twisting everything, controlling everything, keeping him in a cage of guilt and manipulation? I edged closer, careful to remain unseen, holding my breath as my world tilted on a new axis. Denial's voice was different this time. Firm, strained, almost unrecognizable. "I can't believe you've been lying to me all these years," he snapped, anger and disbelief colliding in every word. Aisha froze, her face tightening. "Denial, calm down. You don't understand." "I don't understand," he shouted. "You've been controlling me. You've been twisting every decision, every argument, every moment of my life to serve your own agenda. And all this while, you hid this from me. From everyone." The words were explosive, reverberating through the hallway, and I felt a shiver of vindication and horror at the same time. She took a step back, trying to regain control, her voice softening into manipulation. "Denial. I did it for you. For our family. You don't see the bigger picture." "The bigger picture." His voice rose, sharp and raw. "You lied. You manipulated me. You used me, used my fear, used guilt to make me think I was weak, that I couldn't protect my family without you." A lump rose in my throat. I had never heard denial speak like this. Never. His voice trembled but carried a weight of authority I had never imagined him possessing. "I trusted you," he continued, his chest heaving. "I loved you. And all this time, you've been twisting reality to suit your own needs." Aisha's face fell, almost imperceptibly, but the sharp edge in her eyes remained. She tried a step forward, reaching out. "Denial, please, He cut her off, louder this time, no longer able to contain the anger and heartbreak. "Stop. Stop talking. Stop lying to me." I pressed myself against the wall, my stomach twisting, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She faltered under his gaze, cornered, her lips parting as if to protest, but no words came. Her plan, her careful manipulation, was unraveling in front of me. Denial's hand shook slightly, fists clenched at his sides. "I see it now," he said quietly, almost to himself. "All the control, the guilt, the fear. You've been using it to keep me under your thumb, to make me do what you want, to isolate me. From the people who love me, from the people who care about my son." I swallowed hard. I could see his entire world tipping over. He wasn't just angry. He was devastated. The betrayal cut deeper than any fight I had imagined. Aisha tried to interject again, but Denial's eyes flashed with pain and fury. Don't even speak. I can't listen to another lie, another manipulation, another way you've kept me blind for years. I can't." I felt tears prick my eyes. Not for myself, not for the humiliation I had suffered, but for him. For my son. For the weight he had carried silently, manipulated into believing that love and obedience required pain, guilt, and submission. I pressed my hand to my mouth, barely daring to breathe as I listened to the unraveling of their entire relationship, a tapestry of deceit, control, and emotional coercion laid bare. "I trusted my instincts," Denial shouted. "I trusted my wife. I thought I was doing the right thing. But you've poisoned every decision, every choice, every moment. And now you've dragged this into the most sacred moment of my life. My son's birth." Aisha's shoulders slumped, but her eyes burned with defiance. "I did it for him. For our family. You don't see it. You think I'm cruel, but everything I did was. He cut her off again. No. See now. See everything. And I can't. I can't allow this to continue. I pressed my palm to the wall, my nails digging into the cold paint, my body shaking. For the first time, denial wasn't torn between us. He wasn't silent. He wasn't hiding in indecision. He was awake. He was angry. He was finally breaking free. Aisha's face crumpled into a mixture of fear, panic, and disbelief. Her control over him, the thing she had wielded like a weapon for years, was slipping. And I knew she recognized it. Denial's voice softened slightly, a tinge of sorrow cutting through the fury. I loved you, Aisha. I trusted you. But I cannot forgive what you've done to me, to my family, to my son. Her lips quivered. No, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, he said quietly, deadly calm now. And I'm done being your pawn. I won't let you control my life or my son anymore. The words struck like thunder in the silent hospital corridor. Even the steady beep of the NICU machines seemed to pause. I exhaled, relief and tension coiling together. Denial had finally seen the truth. Finally. But just as the tension between them reached its peak, the door to the NICU swung open. A doctor appeared, brisk, professional, but with something almost imperceptibly urgent in her tone. Mr. Rahman, she said, scanning the room. There's something you should know. Denial froze. The fight momentarily paused. Aisha straightened, her composure trembling as she sensed a shift in authority. The doctor took a step closer. There's someone the baby responds to, she said quietly. His grandmother. We need her inside. The words hung in the air, a jolt of hope and dread hitting me all at once. My breath caught. Denial looked at me. His eyes wide, disbelief and relief swirling in equal measure. I felt frozen, yet alive, every nerve screaming. I had been pushed aside, humiliated, manipulated. And yet now, my presence was needed. Crucial. And in that moment I knew, whatever came next would change everything. The door to the NICU felt like a threshold, not just for me, but for the fragile family we were fighting to protect. I didn't know whether to run or kneel the moment I stepped into the NICU. The scent of antiseptic hit me first, sharp and almost suffocating. Then the sound, beeping monitors, faint alarms, the quiet rustle of nurses moving quickly but cautiously. And there he was, my grandson, teeny, fragile, fighting for life like a warrior in a world far too big for him. I froze, my heart caught in a web of fear, relief, and disbelief. He was so small, so delicate, yet somehow, I could feel him. I approached the incubator slowly, every step measured, as if he could sense my hesitation. I whispered his name softly, though I wasn't sure he could hear it. Hello, little one. It's Grandma. Then I saw it. A tiny hand, so impossibly small, moving ever so slightly. And before I could even process it, he reaching toward the glass. Toward me, toward life. I placed my finger gently near his hand. And, as if understanding instinctively, he gripped it. So softly, so carefully, but with a strength I couldn't believe. I felt tears well up immediately. The warmth of his tiny fingers wrapped around mine. I whispered again, trembling. I'm here, my love. I won't leave you. Ever. The nurse standing nearby glanced at the monitor, then at us, her expression frozen. Even she seemed stunned. The monitors, which had been spiking and dipping wildly, began to stabilize. His breathing slowed. Even stronger. I pressed my palm to the glass of the incubator, letting him feel my warmth through the barrier. My chest ached with the weight of years of being shut out, pushed aside, humiliated. And yet, in this moment, none of that mattered. This little life. This connection. It was all that mattered. I could feel the energy shift around me. The nurses whispered quietly among themselves, glancing at me with new respect, recognition. Even the doctor, tall and brisk, leaned closer, squinting at the monitors. I don't believe it, she murmured, almost to herself. The infant is responding to her presence. Her eyes met mine. A flicker of something. Astonishment, disbelief, hope. She adjusted the settings, observing silently, but her gaze kept returning to us. I looked at Denial, standing near the entrance, eyes wide, jaw tight, hands clenching and unclenching. He looked changed, determined, awake in a way I hadn't seen since all this chaos began. He stepped closer to me, voice low but firm. "Emmy, you're right. He knows you. I've never seen anything like this." I shook my head softly, overwhelmed, heart trembling. "I'm just here, Beta. I'm just here." But even as I spoke, I knew this was bigger than me. This moment, the way he held my finger, the way his breathing steadied, was a statement. A statement that love, presence, and connection mattered more than fear, manipulation, or lies. I felt Aisha's eyes on us from the corridor outside. She leaned against the glass, watching. Her face pale, tight with fury and panic. Her power slipping, her control gone. I caught her gaze, unflinching. For a moment she looked human. Vulnerable. Panic. But then her lips curled in anger, forcing herself to appear composed. Denial's jaw tightened as he noticed her watching. He didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He had seen the truth too clearly now. "Amy," he said softly, almost reverently. I need to take his care into my own hands. I won't let anyone manipulate me or him anymore. Not her, not her family." I nodded, barely daring to breathe. "Yes, Beta. You have to. You're his father. You are his protector." He swallowed, taking a slow, steadying breath. "I won't let them control us. Not the inheritance, not the decisions, nothing. He's our family. Our responsibility. No. I can't lose him." The words hung in the air, echoing softly in the sterile, tense corridor. I watched as Denial stepped closer to the incubator, placing a hand near mine, creating a protective barrier around our grandson. I felt the weight of his presence, the sudden clarity in his eyes, and a fierce, protective pride rose in me. He had finally broken the chains of fear and manipulation. Finally, a nurse stepped closer, leaning in carefully. "We've called security," she whispered. "They're coming to escort the mother to the administrative office. They need to question her about the forged documents." My stomach nodded. Aisha's grip on this family, on this moment, was unraveling fast. Her schemes, her threats, they had real consequences now. I felt a mixture of vindication and unease. I had seen her power crumble, yes. But I knew her anger wouldn't stop at humiliation. Her desperation was dangerous. Denial's gaze met mine again, quiet but fierce. "We're not leaving him alone, Amy. We protect him. Whatever it takes." I nodded, tears brimming but refusing to fall. I pressed my forehead gently against the glass of the incubator, feeling his warmth, his fragility. "I'm here," I whispered. "Always." For a moment time seemed to hold its breath. The monitors beeped steadily. The NICU lights glimmered softly. The chaos outside felt distant, muted. But then I sensed movement behind me. Aisha's mother appeared, frantic, whispering urgently to a nurse. Aisha's father followed closely, face pale, lips pressed into a hard line. And in that instant I realized, nothing would be the same after today. This moment, our bond, our fight, our vigilance, had shifted the balance of power irrevocably. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. "Security," they said. "Coming for Aisha." I pressed my hand closer to the incubator, my grandson's tiny hand still wrapped around my finger. His grip, fragile yet firm, was a lifeline. A lifeline that tethered me to hope, to love, and to the fierce resolve that I would protect this child, no matter the cost. And just as the first security officers rounded the corner, moving quickly toward Aisha, I felt a spark of quiet triumph. The battle wasn't over. But today we had won a foothold. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my racing heart. I met Denial's eyes again, and he nodded, silent, determined. We were ready. The door to the administrative office opened. Security approached. Aisha's eyes flickered to mine one last time. Fear, fury, and shock mingling in a way that sent chills down my spine. And in that heartbeat I knew. The storm was far from over. But for the first time I felt unstoppable. The moment Aisha was escorted down the corridor, I felt the tension in the NICU lift just slightly. It was like a storm had passed, leaving debris in its wake, but a calm I hadn't felt in days. Denial stood beside me, jaw tight, eyes scanning the monitors as if measuring the fragile rise and fall of his son's chest against the chaos we'd survived. Aisha's parents lingered near the entrance, faces pale, lips pressed in tight lines. Their power had vanished as quickly as it had built up over the years. They had always assumed that fear and manipulation could shield them from scrutiny, but now nothing could hide their complicity. I took a deep breath, letting the antiseptic smell of the NICU mix with the soft, rhythmic beeping of the machines. My grandson's tiny chest rose and fell with a steadiness I hadn't dared hope for. For the first time I allowed myself to exhale fully. The social worker who had handled the forged document earlier approached quietly, clipboard in hand. She gave me a subtle nod before speaking in a low, serious voice. "Mrs. Rahim, the hospital will open a formal investigation. They've already taken statements from Aisha and her parents. The forged document is being treated as evidence." I nodded silently, my stomach twisting with a mix of vindication and unease. Finally, the truth had been exposed. Finally, the lies couldn't shield her any longer. Denial's hand found mine. His grip was firm, grounding. "Emmy, thank you for standing by me." "For him." I squeezed back, feeling the weight of everything we'd endured, the exclusion, the threats, the fear, lift slightly from my shoulders. It wasn't just me, Beta. It was all of us. He needed both of us to be present to protect him. We lingered silently, watching as our grandson slept peacefully in his incubator. For the first time, he seemed untethered from the storm of deceit that had surrounded him since birth. Each tiny breath reminded me why I had fought so hard, why I had endured the humiliation, the anger, the manipulation. Finally, Denial spoke, voice low, still edged with tension. "We need to take him home," he said. "Away from all of this." I nodded immediately. "Yes. He belongs in a safe place, with love, not fear." The process of leaving the hospital was slow, careful. Each nurse and staff member gave us subtle acknowledgement, a quiet respect, a shared understanding of the ordeal we had survived. It was as if the walls themselves had absorbed the tension and were now silently cheering our victory. As we wheeled the incubator toward the elevators, Aisha's parents lingered near the entrance, watching with pale, fearful faces. Their powerlessness was a spectacle in itself. I could see the worry etched in their eyes, the realization that their schemes had failed, that their influence was gone. Denial didn't look back at them. He focused on his son, steadying the tiny life in his arms, preparing to carry him into a home that would finally be safe. Once home, the first thing I did was place a small blanket over my grandson. He stirred slightly, then nestled against the warmth, breathing evenly, almost as if he recognized the safety of our presence. I sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. "Sleep well, little one," I whispered. "You're safe now." Denial crouched beside me, voice gentle but firm. "We'll make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Not her. Not anyone." I nodded, feeling the weight of truth and justice settling over us. It was bittersweet. We had won, yes, but the path had been cruel, painful, and almost unbearable. Later that afternoon, as Denial held our grandson and I sat nearby, a soft knock echoed at the door. The hospital had sent a letter. I opened it cautiously, unfolding the crisp paper. The words were precise, professional, but they carried the finality of law and consequence. "A formal investigation has been opened regarding the forged secondary guardian document. All parties involved will be contacted for statements and further examination." My hands trembled slightly as I read the letter. It was justice. Slow, procedural, inevitable. But justice nonetheless. Denial leaned over, reading it over my shoulder. His jaw tightened, a mix of relief and resolve crossing his features. This is it, Amy. The truth is out. Nothing can be hidden anymore. I exhaled, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and peace. For the first time in days, I felt the weight of fear lift from my shoulders. Our grandson slept, completely unaware of the drama that had surrounded his first hours of life. And yet, in his tiny hands and steady breathing, he held a promise, a reminder that even in the midst of betrayal, love could prevail. I glanced at Denial, noting how different he looked. Older, stronger, yet tender in a way only parenthood could forge. He had been tested, manipulated, controlled, and yet he had emerged protective, clear-headed, and fiercely loving. "Amy," he said softly, breaking the silence. "I've never thanked you enough for standing by me. For seeing the truth when I couldn't. For protecting him." I shook my head, a small, sad smile tugging at my lips. "You don't need to thank me, Beta. You found your own strength. You made your own choices. I was just here." We sat in silence for a while, letting the quiet wash over us. The house was calm, sun filtering gently through the windows, a stark contrast to the chaos of the hospital. The baby stirred slightly, murmuring softly, then settled again. I pressed my hand gently against his small chest, feeling the warmth and rhythm of life, and whispered, "We've come through the storm, little one. You're safe now. You belong with us." Denial rested his hand on mine, creating a protective circle around our grandson. "The storm isn't over, Amy," he said quietly. "But we'll face it together. I won't let anyone hurt him, not ever again." I nodded, watching our grandson's tiny eyelids flutter as he slept. The fear, the anger, the betrayal, they had all been transformed into a quiet strength. For the first time I felt a sense of resolution, not just for the baby but for Denial and for myself. We had faced manipulation, deceit, and cruelty, and emerged intact, united, and determined. Yet, as the sunlight shifted across the room, and the letter from the hospital lay on the table, I knew the path ahead would still have challenges. Justice had begun, but it wasn't finished. Some truths take time to settle. Some wounds take time to heal. But in this moment, in the soft warmth of our home, and the gentle rise and fall of my grandson's chest, I knew this. Love, presence, and courage had won. And the storm, though not over, had finally found its eye. The truth came slowly, like water seeping through cracks, but once it arrived, it was undeniable. Aisha's carefully crafted world of control and manipulation began to crumble under the weight of evidence, testimony, and her own confessions. Denial sat across from me, documents spread between us like evidence in a courtroom drama. His face was taut, weary, and resolute. All of this proves everything I suspected," he murmured, flipping through the pages of bank statements, emails, and hospital reports. Financial coercion, emotional manipulation. The forged guardianship. "It's all here, Amy." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Relief, yes, but also grief. Grief for the years lost. Grief for the trust he had given her. The moments of joy she had poisoned. And relief because finally, Denial could see clearly, finally reclaim control over his life, his choices, his child. I reached out and placed a hand over his. "It's not easy, Beta," I whispered. "Justice is slow, but it's certain." He nodded, jaw tight. "I can't be her husband anymore, Amy. I've loved her, but this is more than betrayal. She used guilt, control, even the baby, to manipulate me. I need to protect him. And myself." I swallowed, tears threatening. The words hit harder than I expected. I had hoped for reconciliation. I had hoped my son could forgive, could move forward. But the reality was clear. Some damage could never be undone. "You're making the right choice," I said softly. "For him, and for you." He glanced at me, eyes haunted. "I know. But it doesn't make it easier. I never wanted this for us, for my family." I squeezed his hand, feeling the tremor in his fingers. I know, Beta. I know. The inquiry had revealed everything. Aisha's parents had been implicated, not just in supporting her manipulations, but actively participating in financial coercion. Her carefully hidden network of control was laid bare, every scheme, every whispered threat, every falsified document. I remembered how powerless I had felt in those early days. Pushed out of the hospital, ignored, humiliated. Now, watching the legal and administrative processes unfold, I felt a mixture of vindication and sorrow. Vindication because the truth was finally out. Sorrow because the price had been so high. Denial spoke again, his voice quieter this time. I've filed for legal separation. I can't continue living in a household poisoned by fear and control. He can't either. Not my son. Not our future. I nodded, swallowing hard. It was the choice he needed to make. The safe, sane choice. But it felt like a wound opening in slow motion. I understand, Beta, I said softly. It's not easy. But it's necessary. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the faint hum of the city outside, the gentle creak of our home settling. It was peaceful, but fragile. I thought of my grandson, sleeping quietly in his crib just a few rooms away. The innocence of his breaths, the small rise and fall of his chest, reminded me why we had fought so hard. He deserved safety, love, stability, and finally he would have it. Denial leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment, and let out a long, shaky breath. I feel like I've been awake for the first time in years. Like I can finally breathe without her shadow hanging over me. I smiled, though my chest ached. You're free now, Beta. Free to make the choices that are right for you. That are right for him. We spoke little after that, letting the weight of the day settle. Legal filings, investigations, and court documents had taken their toll. The battle was far from over, but the foundations had been laid. Justice, slow but certain, was moving forward. And then, late that evening, as I was gathering some files for the next day's proceedings, the phone rang. Froze. The caller ID flashed a number I recognized instantly. It was Aisha. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the screen. My heart hammered in my chest. After everything, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, why now? Finally, curiosity, caution, and the faintest spark of empathy pushed me to answer. Hello, I said, voice steady, though my chest tightened. There was silence on the other end. And then a soft, trembling voice. Amy. It was her. Crying. Broken. Vulnerable in a way I had never heard before. I felt a pang of something. Pity, sorrow, disbelief. Her voice, once so sharp, controlling and sure, now quivered with genuine fear and remorse. I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart. I never meant for it to go this far. I swallowed, keeping my voice calm, cautious. What do you want, Aisha? She hiccuped, tears audible even over the line. I don't know. I thought I could control everything. I was scared. I didn't want to lose Denial. I didn't want to lose him. And now, I've lost everything, and I don't know how to fix it. I closed my eyes, taking a slow, deep breath. Her confession was raw, unfiltered, and it cut through years of anger and pain in an instant. I felt a mixture of triumph and weariness. Relief that the truth had surfaced. Grief that the fallout had come at such a cost. Your time for control is over, Aisha, I said softly but firmly. You've had your chance. The investigation will take care of the rest. Denial is protecting his son. That's what matters now. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Soft, shuddering sigh. I understand, she whispered, barely audible. And then the line went dead. I set the phone down slowly, feeling the echo of her tears linger in the silence of the room. Denial, who had been nearby, glanced up, concern etched on his face. Amy, everything okay? I nodded, swallowing hard. Yes, she called, crying. Vulnerable. But it doesn't change anything. He exhaled, relief and weariness mingling in his expression. Good. We focus on him. On our family. That's all that matters now. I looked toward the nursery, hearing the gentle breathing of my grandson. The weight of the past weeks pressed on me, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a fragile sense of peace. Justice was slow, yes. Painful, yes. But certain. And though the path ahead would be difficult, uncertain, and still fraught with challenges, one thing was clear. We had survived the storm. And in the quiet aftermath, I knew we were stronger for it. But as I glanced at the phone again, the memory of her voice, the trembling, desperate cry lingered. I realized that even with justice moving forward, the echoes of betrayal, fear, and manipulation would not fade easily. And somewhere deep inside I knew, the next chapter of this story, our healing, our rebuilding, was just beginning. The moment Aisha returned to the house, I felt a strange tension settle over the room. She wasn't here to argue. She wasn't here to manipulate. She was here to face what she had done. I saw her standing at the doorway, shoulders hunched, eyes downcast, lips pressed tightly together. The air between us was heavy, thick with months of betrayal, fear, and pain. I swallowed, steadying myself. "Come in," I said softly, keeping my voice calm. She hesitated, then stepped forward, her movements small, careful. Her eyes flicked toward my grandson, sleeping peacefully in his crib, and I saw the tiniest crack in her armor, a glimmer of guilt, regret, and fear all at once. I need to say something," she began, her voice trembling, barely audible over the soft hum of the ceiling fan. I braced myself. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said, almost in a whisper. "I don't deserve it. I know that. I need to release this weight. For denial, for the baby. And, for myself." I felt my chest tighten. The rawness of her admission was startling, even after everything she had done. She wasn't asking me to absolve her. She was asking me to witness her truth, to acknowledge it, to let it exist in the light. I nodded slowly, keeping my voice steady. "I'm listening." Her hands twisted nervously, wringing together, and for the first time I noticed just how small, fragile, and human she looked. I was driven by fear," she admitted. "Insecurity. Pressure from my family. I wanted to control everything. Denial, the baby, the money. I thought it would protect me. I see now. It only destroyed us." I took a deep breath, absorbing her words. I thought of the sleepless nights, the hospital corridors, the forged documents, the threats, the whispers. All of it. And yet, I also thought of denial. His courage, his clarity, his fierce love for his child. And I knew in that moment, forgiveness wasn't for her. It was for him. It was for the peace of the family we had fought to protect. "I forgive you," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not forgiving for you. I'm forgiving so denial can heal. So he can raise his son without fear." Her head lifted slightly, eyes wide, searching mine. "I thank you," she murmured. "Even that, even just this, means something. I've been carrying this shame for so long. I thought it would destroy me. But maybe it doesn't have to." I nodded, feeling a strange calm wash over me. The weight of months of chaos, manipulation, and betrayal had finally started to lift. Denial entered the room quietly, placing a protective hand on the crib. He looked between us, eyes steady, almost relieved. "You too can speak," he said softly. "But the baby comes first. Always." I smiled faintly, glancing down at my grandson. He stirred, eyes blinking sleepily, and then, a tiny smile curved across his lips. It was so small, so fleeting, yet it struck me with a force I hadn't expected. A smile so pure, so innocent, it seemed to heal everything in its path. The betrayal, the fear, the nights of tears, the moments of helplessness. All of it melted away for just a heartbeat. Aisha leaned back slightly, her own expression softening as she watched the child. I didn't realize," she whispered. "I never realized that he, that he could bring peace like this. I took a step closer to the crib, resting a hand gently on the soft blanket covering him. "This is why we fight, Aisha," I said, voice tender but firm. "For him. For his life. For love to win, even when it's hard." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I see that now. I truly do." Denial crouched beside the crib, his gaze steady on his son. "He will grow knowing he is loved, protected and safe," he said softly. "And that is what matters most." We move forward, together as a family. For a moment the room was quiet. The hum of the fan, the soft creak of the floorboards, the faint whir of the air conditioner. All became a lullaby of sorts, marking a pause in our storm. I watched as Aisha's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension easing from her face. Not a forgiveness of her deeds, but a recognition of truth, an acceptance of consequences. It was the release she had sought. And for me, it was the closure I hadn't expected. I hadn't imagined forgiving, not after everything. But sometimes closure comes not through justice alone, but through witnessing the human frailty behind it. I looked down at my grandson again. That tiny smile lingered in my memory, anchoring me in a present filled with fragile peace. I pressed my finger gently to his hand, and he grasped it with the same gentle determination I had seen months ago in the NICU. It was a circle completed. The bond of family, tested by lies and betrayal, had endured. I realized then that my place in this family, the heart of it, was no longer questioned. Through endurance, presence, and love I had become the constant, the steady hand guiding them through chaos. Denial stood and moved closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Emmy, thank you," he said simply. "For everything. For being here. For showing him, showing all of us, what family truly is." I smiled faintly, heart full. "Yes, Beta. That's all that matters. We protect him. We love him. And we keep moving forward." Aisha stepped back toward the door, her voice soft. I'll leave you now. I need to process this. I know I can't undo the past. But I hope someday I can at least do better." I nodded, words unnecessary. Her footsteps faded down the hall, leaving a quiet that felt both heavy and gentle. I turned back to my grandson, holding him close. His soft breathing, the warmth of his body against mine, the trust in his tiny eyes. It became my healing, my reminder, a reassurance that, despite everything, love could endure. We sat together, the three of us, Denial, my grandson, and I. Justice had been served. Relationships had been redefined. And I, finally, was recognized as the heart of this family. The past's shadows lingered, yes, but they no longer ruled us. The future awaited, fragile, uncertain, but ours. And in that fragile peace, I realized something profound. Sometimes the closure you never expected is the one that heals the deepest wounds.